every other feature, and you have this quadratic explosion of complexity, right? Your first feature is fine. Your second feature interacts with the first. Your third interacts with both of the other two, right? And very quickly this becomes unmanageable, and your productivity, which started going like this, is levels off and everything grinds to a halt. The point of good infrastructure and good architecture and things like that is to build abstractions that you can then put features on top of, so that the features are ideally interacting with just the abstraction, or just the abstraction and a few other features, so you can get closer to that ideal of linear complexity as opposed to quadratic complexity. Because with linear complexity, your feature velocity, it just doesn't change. Your output, your business value of your product is just going up constantly. So in order to do that, you have to invest some in architecture, right? So the rule of thumb that I've found works pretty well is about 20%, just kind of at a steady state. That's what you want to be doing, about 20% and 80% on features, because the features is the point. That's the stuff that the users or the customers care about. That's the value you're creating. But the infrastructure is future proofing. If you are planning to build this product for another year, and then you're going to sell the company and somebody else's problem, 100% features. Do it. I mean, you're screwing over whoever is acquiring your company, so I don't actually recommend that. And of course, if you plan on being acquired in a year, it'll happen in 2 or 3, and something will go wrong. So maybe don't plan on that. But so I don't think there's really ever a case where you should go less than that. There are definitely cases where you want to go more than that. If, for example, you've been doing, or you're coming into a position and you're inheriting a code base with a lot of technical debt, with a lot of a mess, you probably want to go higher than that. Or if this is your code base and you're just hearing this advice for the first time, you probably want to go higher than that for some amount to invest in the future. When you do that, that's a business question. When the business has appetite to do that. But there's plenty of cases where you've got a mess and you need to go up to 30, 40, 50% of your time on infrastructure, so that you can actually 6 months, a year from now, get back to a reasonable feature cadence. You'll know you're in these positions because your engineers aren't productive anymore, because you're missing deadlines left and right, because everything is taking way longer than it should. From your perspective, not from the business's perspective. The business perspective on features and when they should be done
is always
not necessarily aligned with the reality.
So how do I stay? So in order to be able to know how much time it should take, how much time how do I stay relevant? How do I stay relevant as an engineer, moving as a leader? Like if I spend too much time out of the technicality, I'm gonna not know what's happening. But also, if I spend too much, then I don't grow as a leader. So how do you make sure that you're relevant?
So this is kind of my own personal answer to this. I have 8 hours a week blocked off in my schedule that I spend coding, and part of that is I really enjoy coding. Part of that is that is actually my background. That is, something I have a lot of experience in, and I am pretty good at it. And so what I try and spend that time on
Don't go too fast on that. I speak to some of your clients.
Oh,
so
God.
I'm kidding.
So I try and spend my own coding time on some of the hardest components of projects, things that I want to make sure are going to get done, that potentially are going to be, blockers on other things or hold up the timeline, or things that are just very complicated in terms of requirements. And if I'm the one who helped figure out the requirements, and then I implement the feature, that's just way less communication overhead. But the other reason that I do it is because technology changes, right? 10 years from now, technology will look nothing like it looks right now.
And look, in the past 5 years, we moved to
Right.
like a monolithic, like everybody or some people were speaking about service-driven architecture, basically
Yeah.
an API, to microservice, to now serverless, where you don't even look how that works, to
Well, and front end is a total. I mean,
front end.
monolith and microservice is actually gone. We've gone back and forth on that several times in the past 40 years. So that's just a pendulum that's going to go back and forth. But front end, for example, right? 10 years ago, jQuery was it, and now it's it's Angular and React, and even as far as React Native is starting to replace native
Native app, yeah.
native apps.
Angular is still a thing. I think that was React
So-
and Vue that you were about to say. But
No, React Angular was a thing. React only beat it 2 months ago on Stack Overflow Trends. This is actually breaking news. But I also, I mean, in terms of
there are a lot of people at Google, so that's why.
exactly. But all of this is very different. I mean, like 10 years ago, people were saying mobile is the thing, and nowadays, at least in terms of people asking us for work, most people are saying, "Oh yeah, sure, let's do mobile too, but we really want it done in React Native because, like, why build two code bases for two different mobile platforms? And there's it's just going to be a lot of the same paradigm as we're doing for web." So it feels, I mean, it's totally different, and if you don't stay current, you can still be valuable as a technology leader. You can still help a lot on the process side, on the product side, on the sales side, and all of that. But where you're gonna lose touch, in particular, is on the architecture and like the actual implementation side. And that's something that, at least to me, is very important, which is why I still write code, is so that I can stay relevant in that aspect.
Yeah, understand how to make the decision. So
on the other hand, if the stuff you care about is the other pieces of it, then you might be fine with eventually letting all of your coding time disappear and spending all that time in just meetings, code review, managing Jira and all of that.
So, let's give I'll do a structured wrap up of everything that we discussed about, and love your input.
Yeah.
There's a brief question that popped up since we were speaking about technology trend. What about TensorFlow, Google AI, ML Kits usage? I mean,
there's a lot of cool tools coming out. I mean, my answer to that is, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what the market decides in terms of adoption. I understand there's definitely new technologies, new tools, things like that are can be very it can be very exciting just for the novelty alone. And then I feel like after a few years, the market pressure answers the question of whether or not they actually solve the problems that they were claiming to solve.
So let me try to give some perspective on that, also on technologies. I remember giving that advice to one of the former people who worked for me to help him becoming actually an upcoming CTO. Is like, a CTO cannot be dogmatic. A CTO needs to be pragmatic and needs to choose whatever is best. So technology choices are not, do you like TensorFlow, to which flavor, like, or do you like Angular versus React, whatever, or like Ruby versus PHP versus Java? Nobody cares. Is a CTO needs to take this macro view. And so that's the difference also between an engineer. I want to spend my cycles on stuff that I do not know and I want to learn, versus as a CTO, I want to spend my time on topics that make sense. And so that's why, in some cases, PHP is still super relevant, because that's what makes sense in a specific ecosystem, or going deeper on. So as a CTO, would you agree? You cannot be dogmatic, you have to be pragmatic.
I guess my answer to, what about insert cool new technology here is a question. What problem is it solving for your business in particular? Like, it could be the coolest technology ever, but isn't actually what you need. You don't need Google ML if you're building, if what you're building is business process automation.
You make me think about the blockchain and everything the other folks I was working
Right.
with.
So but on the other hand, if you need the machine learning component, then that matters a lot.
Let's so we need to wrap up briefly. So like I want to just to give a structured debrief on like so what we discussed. The highlight for me is an engineer codes, an executives think about the build software and think about the overall system.
Mhm.
And so that's somewhat of a guiding principle of as someone like you want to be able to understand which level of complexity of the pendulum, where are you? And through that lens, that allows you to understand like, am I should I be in what is being done? Should I be focused on what should be done? Like what level of clarity do I position myself? And actually, you learn that by doing. Like you don't. There is no like become a CTO school, but one of hard knock, or there is no being a CEO school. Like you need to be out there and work through that, through all these crux in person, and and what makes you good actually is the understanding of how do you contribute to whatever is a system that you're building overall. Um, any any last 30-second learnings that you want to highlight?
Any last minute learnings?
Last 30 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, what being a CTO is depends on what you want to do. So like it could be being an amazing technical leader. It could be insulating your technology organization from, from everything else that happens in a business. You could be, leading the charge from your keyboard, or you could be leading the charge from a conference room. There's so many different ways to do it. And
Awesome.
what I like about being a CTO is I get to make those choices.
Cool. So thanks a lot for tuning in. That is awesome. Hope the discussion was helpful, and so you can continue the discussion with us through our different social handles.
Emails up.
The emails up, so you can don't hesitate to share to reach out to us directly. Thanks at Zagaran.com. Zagaran being like this amazing company that you build, Zags, and Clement.Casalot at Techstars.com. So reach out to us. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure. This is an awesome conversation. Only to have more follow-up on that specific topic. Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for tuning in from all over the world. That was fantastic to hear from all of you. Have a great one. Bye.